People of the internet, welcome back to another video. It is I, Don Thomas, back in here with another one. As always, folks, the likes, the comments, the subscribes are all greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for the support on this channel. Without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into today's topic, folks. As you see it in the title there, whatever the case is, some of you may or may not know, of course, if you know me personally, or if I'm just a complete stranger to you online. I celebrated a birthday not too long ago. April 16th, I turned 35 years old. Now, some of you may be looking like, no, there's no way this dude is anywhere older than 25, 26, 27, right? Like, there's no way 30? Nah, no way. Right? And even just saying that number out loud, like, still kind of feels away. I'm not going to lie, man. I'll be completely honest with you guys, man. I even have this conversation with my sister sometimes as well, too, in terms of just, like, 35, man. The significance of it for me personally. And then just the feeling of just, like, it was kind of messing with me. I'm not going to lie. Leading up into, as reality was setting in, is, you know, this year even kicked off, of course, April, whatever. Understanding, like, man, I'm, you know, gonna be 35, right? I don't know about you guys, but when I hear that number, it just, you know, maybe society has programmed us to be this way as well too, but it's a number that comes with its own weight, if that makes sense, at least for me. I know something that I was kind of struggling with leading up into this. There was, of all the ages, I remember when I turned 32, that was another age that kind of messed with me, like, psychologically. It's just like feeling like, hey, man, I didn't feel like that number accurately depicted where I was in my life, right? And just in terms of just like, you know, all the things that society says that one should, you know, have obtained at that time. So I know 32 kind of messed with me, but 35 for some months leading up into it was just like, damn, right? It just again, it just sounded like a number that just didn't feel as accurate as to where I was in my life. I mean, yeah, in just terms of just like, you know, I guess for lack of a better word, accomplishment or whatever the case is. I feel like society makes it in a way that it was just like you hear a number like 35 and you automatically associate it with family, you know, children, successful career, you know, house, you know, whatever the case is. All the different accolades that one would assume. You would almost assume that that was the case. And not to say that that's not the case for a lot of my peers as well, too. But the main thing that I kind of wanted to get across in this message in particular, of course, this is just me kind of just being a little bit introspective as well, too, in terms of just like my personal, how I feel personally about, you know, where I'm at in my life now. And then just, of course, it's like how I see the world and, you know, what society kind of deems with that, with this age in particular, millennials in particular. I learned that, like, man, this life thing, and I even spoke on a video, of course, my most recent video upload where I was speaking on in terms of just like the meaning of life, right? And what I thought was like the whole objective of why we're even out here. With this one in particular, I'm more so speaking to the idea that this life thing is really, it is like, I think it's meant to be lived at your own pace, right? It's meant to be lived, as they say, you know, living to the beat of your own drum. I feel like the current times that we're in social media, with this digital internet social media age, man, a lot of us can fall victim to, as I like to say, you know, looking at, you know, the answers of another person's, your peers, you know, looking at the answers on the test, right, of your peers, and feeling maybe, you know, some sense of like inadequacy because you may or may not be, you know, in the same space, maybe socially, financially, whatever the case is, amongst, you know, people that you maybe grew up with, family members, or even just strangers online, like, you know, your demographic. Again, you got your Gen Zs and your millennials, whatever the case is. So, I do know, of course, even just like for men and women, even some would even argue, you know, more so for women as well, too. Once you start hitting 30, it's different, right? Your body will remind you every day, of course, you know, with the aches and pains that you'll feel, like inevitably your slow recovery time from a night out of maybe drinking or partying, whatever the case is. It takes a little while to recuperate, right? When you reach that threshold. And then again, it's just like what comes with it, of course, again, you just associate it with, you know, having a family, being married, having a successful career, things of that nature. So I know, in terms of just like how I kind of view the world, and even just like the stage of life right now, man, I'm learning that we really shouldn't be going off of societal norms. We really shouldn't fall victim to, and I get it, social media. Sometimes you got your Instagrams and your Facebooks, whatever the case is. So it might be a little bit harder to do. I don't think social media made it any easier, but like it's hard to feel, I can see how one could fall in the trap of feeling like their own life is inadequate because of what they're seeing on social media. Because of, maybe you don't have the accolades that you would think that you would have, at that certain age, whatever the case is. Now, I feel like my message to anybody that may be watching this, anybody in particular, of course, which is, I would say 30 plus, if you're a millennial like me or, soon approaching that age, is that, or anybody in life in general, honestly, I think the overall message is what I'm trying to convey in this video in particular is that, man, this life thing is really meant to be lived by your own rules, right? To your own standards. Don't fall victim to social media and this celebrity lifestyle or this glitz and glam of, the happy marriage, happy kids, happy career. It doesn't really work like that. If you really think about it, it's not how this life thing goes, in my personal opinion. So I know, as I mentioned, of course, as well, too, maybe women in particular, of course, I would love for y'all to chime in as well, too. Like, I know around this age, you start hearing about, like, the maternal clock and, oh, I'm running out of time. I need to get married. I need to have kids, yada, 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 this, that, and the other. And that in itself is another form of pressure that's being placed on, that demographic, which I do understand. But again, the point I really want to get across, and what I'm realizing now as well, too, I feel like I've realized this, but this birthday in particular kind of drove it home for me, is that, like, you can't go off of these superficial ways of life. You can't go off of this cookie cutter, one size fits all, like it has to be this, it has to be school, marriage, family, kid. It doesn't really work like that. And you, as an individual, have the right to kind of curate your life in a way that makes sense to you, right? Like, I don't think it's a situation where it's ever going to be one size fits all, right? It's ever going to be like, oh, cool, like let's all go down the checklist of what it's meant to live a fulfilling life. I feel like fulfillment is going to look different for a lot of different people. Fulfillment, of course, is going to be self-defined. I feel like it's up to you as the individual to define what fulfillment looks like for you. For some people, maybe it's not having, the career or whatever the case is, or having children or whatever the case is. You have that right. You do have that right. And I also want to say as well, too, don't put yourself in, don't have unnecessary pressures of feeling like you need to get certain things done by a certain age, right? As I mentioned, of course, as well, too, like, for me personally, it wasn't a fact of feeling inadequate because, again, like, look, I'm proud of what I've been able to accomplish in my 35 years of living. And that could be, based off of my own standards, of course, as well, too. I'm not basing that off of anything else. I just feel like, okay, cool. But I do know the reason why I was saying it was kind of messing with me before is because there is elements of my life where I still feel like I need work. That's just being completely honest. Like, I feel like there's still elements where I kind of envision it maybe in my childhood. I mean, if I'm really going off of my childhood, in my mind, I always thought that I was going to be married, kids, by like 25, and then I turned 25 and saw that was so far from the truth that it wasn't even funny, right? So it's just like it's always interesting to see, like, kind of how you envisioned your life when you were younger to where you are in your current years, man. If I lived the life that I really thought I was gonna have by this time, then I would have definitely had a 10-year-old at least by now, whatever the case is. But again, man, I think for me personally, man, this birthday it only weighed on me in that sense of I think there's an element of me that still feels like young, right? Although, like I said, physically, the aches and pains, the stiffness in my neck says otherwise. But like, there's elements of me that, perfect example, man. I was in the grocery store not too long ago, and I was walking down the aisle, and I came across a box of Teddy Grahams, and I purchased a box of Teddy Grahams, right? And it's just like, 35 years old, but still eats childhood snacks. Like, and maybe it's just more so nostalgia, maybe, whatever the case is. But like, I felt like, damn, like, is that what a man should be doing? Right? But I had no problem. Even like walking to the register, whatever the case is, the cash register lady, she, probably thought nothing of it. But I kind of chuckled at myself like, man, I'm a 35-year-old man purchasing a box of Teddy Grahams. If you know what Teddy Grahams are, I ate that when I was a little kid. the little small little bears or whatever the case is. But it's things like that that kind of make me feel like, man, am I 35? Like, am I where I need to be in my life at this age, right? And the realization is that, yes, man, like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. If it was supposed to be any way different, then it would be so, right? And that's what I want to convey to you guys as well. To anybody that may be watching this, of course, this message is going to resonate with a lot of people that's maybe getting this bracket. Again, maybe anywhere from 30 to 35, whatever the case is. Maybe you're younger. Maybe you're approaching 30, whatever the case is. Your late 20s, whatever the case is. Or maybe even if you're older, man. Even if you're, 45, 50, whatever the case is. I feel like we can all feel a sense of inadequacy if we're basing our standards off of societal, pop culture, celebrity lifestyles, man. So that's the main thing. I didn't necessarily want to ramble. This is maybe more so just introspective for me as well too. I did enjoy my birthday. It was a spring break. I took some time off from work. Got to see family. Got to see friends. Went to some cool events, man, which was pretty cool. So I think it was a birthday well spent, and I'm definitely grateful to be able to see 35 years because, especially when you're thinking about all the maybe peers or whatever the cases who were not fortunate to even make it that far, right, to be able to see that year. So I'm definitely grateful. I don't want to come off ungrateful. Again, I to my own definition am satisfied with the things that I've been able to accomplish at this time at this stage of my life. But the main message I want to get across, man, is live to the beat of your own drum. Make your own rules. Don't go off of society's rules of what you should and should not do by the time you're X amount age or whatever the case is. Because if you're only setting yourself up to go down this pity party, whatever the case is, it might be the opposite. Maybe you're somebody who exceeded those bounds well before 30, right? Maybe you've had the house and the kids and the career, whatever the case is. Maybe in your early 20s, 25, whatever the case is. But I always feel like there's some element of life where people might feel inadequate based off of what they see society says, right? Like, oh man, you should have this by this age. You should have the relationship. You should have the kids. You should have the career by this age. And the main thing, again, I'm trying to get across is that it does not have to be like that. Don't go off of social media and the lives of your peers because ultimately you don't know what people have to go through to even get to be able to obtain the things that you see them, currently have at that current stage of their life. Like, there's a lot of things, on the surface level, we might think things look like, pretty glitz and glam. Like, oh man, it must have been, that sure looks nice or whatever the case is. But you don't know what people have to actually go through to obtain those things, right? You don't know the trials and tribulations, as they usually say, everybody must, carry their own cross. You don't know the cross that some people have to carry in order to obtain the things that you see them doing online, whatever the case is. So I never try to discredit people. But I also don't compare myself to people as well too. I pride myself in being able to live to the beat of my own drum. I do what makes sense to me, especially at this age of my life right now, where it's just like, yeah, man. Of course, you set personal goals for yourself. You set some type of trajectory of where you would like to see yourself go. But I don't beat myself up too much about not having obtained those things by the time frame that I saw. Right? I think, as they usually say, God's timing is the perfect timing. We have our plan. He has his. And I'm happy to been able to have made it this far, 35 years in the game, right? 35 years in this game of this thing called life, as I mentioned. And I'm grateful, man. But again, in closing, because I definitely don't want to ramble, live the life that makes sense to you. Don't feel less than. Don't feel inadequate. If you have or have not obtained certain things. Focus on your own paper, right? As they usually say. If this thing is a test and everybody's heads down with the Scantron in front of them, putting the answers to this thing called life is in the best way that they see possible, don't worry about what the next man's putting on his paper. Worry about your test, right? Worry about the time frame. Worry about the challenges that you're faced with. Only focus on the things that you can control within your own life. And then as you're maneuvering through this game of life, play to your own rules. Play to things that make sense. Don't fall victim to the traps that society will put you in, and then you go down this rabbit hole of feeling, sorry for yourself, or, oh man, I wish this, that, the other. Understand that you're still in the game. Understand if you have a functioning brain and a beating heart, that you can still change your situation. Look at my life, man. I always tell these people this as well too. Like, a decade ago, my 25th birthday looked a lot different than my 35th birthday. To be completely honest, like a decade, and that's why another reason why this birthday was a little bit significant for me as well too, is just like, if I look back just 10 years, It was completely different. Completely different. So it's just like, even just mindset wise, or just like, and of course, with age comes wisdom, right? In most situations. So it's just like, all that to say, like, you can still change the trajectory of your life if you really feel inadequate, right? If you feel that your life should be a certain way, then ask yourself, what am I doing to change that? And what am I basing this off of? What's the urgency? What's my why, as they say? Like, what is your why as to why you want to accomplish these things or do these things or whatever the case is? Are you basing it off of your own standards or that of social media? That's my thought, man. Of course, I never want to ramble too long in these videos, man, but I wanted to kind of speak on that. Of course, I'm still recuperating from a long week off. Grateful, like I said, of course, to have been able to celebrate 35 years of life. I'm grateful. All the people that I got to see, friends, family, and things of that nature. So, whoever this message is for, it's going to resonate for whoever it's for. Again, anybody within that window of 30, 35, or approaching that year, man, live to the beat of your own drum. Don't go off of social media. Don't feel inadequate. Don't feel envious or jealous of other people that may or may not have accomplished other things that you yourself thought you could accomplish, because at the end of the day, you can still do those exact same things as well too. And if anything, you can find inspiration in people that are of you, your peers, whatever the case is. If anything, use it positively to motivate you and inspire you to, be able to, at least, if anything, at the very least, see that these things are possible. But don't beat yourself too much about, not accomplishing certain things at a certain stage based off of societal norms, because you'll be running that rabbit hole forever and feel like, oh, nah, well, I got to accomplish this, or I got to accomplish the next thing, whatever the case is. So, yeah, man, that's the message for this video. As always, greatly appreciated for the support on this channel. And yeah, I will catch you on the next one.